What is up? Welcome to Mock It Like It's Hot. We are back. I had to take last week off. It was my Scott Fishbowl live draft, but we are back and ready to rock. No Austin this week, but I have a great guest, somebody who was here earlier in the season, had terrible internet, wanted a redemption show, so I gave him a redemption show, and then Austin couldn't make it yet again. He's ducking our good friend Steve, but we'll worry about that a little bit later. We are getting into the point of summer where it's time to start talking home leagues, and I have been doing this show for 4 years. And it came up in a comment a few weeks ago, and actually another comment last year, that we have never done an 8-team mock. And I started to think about it. Not only have we never done it, I don't think I've ever seen an 8-team mock. But the fact of the matter is, those leagues still exist. And they still matter. And if you watched the TV show The League, like a lot of us fantasy degenerates did, that was based on an 8-team league. So why not show those folks a little bit of love? That is what we are doing tonight, an 8-team PPR mock. It's Friday night, so it's actually hard to fill this one up, even with it only being an 8-team mock. But we're still going to make it work. And we're going to do this mock draft. 8 teams. Everyone's going to love their team. Let's see if you love them too. Let's get into it. What is up? Welcome to Mock It Like It's Hot, Club Fantasy's weekly mock draft show. I am your host, Ryan Weisse. Austin Amandolia could not make it this week, but as I mentioned in the intro, we have a blast from the past. And by the past, I mean like 5 weeks ago. Steve Lawson, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
Oh, I'm super excited. Austin, if you're listening to this, stop ducking me.
And I told him Steve was not going to be happy about this. I told him that you were going to tell him he was ducking you. And I think it's clear, it's evident, it's 100% factual. Austin is officially ducking you at this point.
He's afraid of my drafting skills, and I get it. It's it's intimidating to some people.
I was trying to get this comment up here. Steve, what's up, dude? From Jamie. Jamie was on the show a few weeks ago as well.
Jamie, what's going on? Nice to see you here too. I see him all over the place.
Yeah, and Jamie just joined a Discord server I'm in. Yeah, Jamie's been out there and about there creating great content. If you guys aren't following Jamie, make sure you do so. Derek, I'm going to address this question right now before we get into a little bit of the intro. There are still people, I think, who play in 8-team leagues. Maybe I'm wrong. The viewership on this video will be the guiding light. If you do play in an 8-team league, drop it in the comments. Let us know. If not, this might be the only time we do this show. So it was fun while it lasted. But 10 does seem to be the smallest. But there may still be 8-team leagues out there. I wanted to let that run. But Steve, before we get into this actual league, I had you on I think it was about 5 weeks ago to promote your charity tournament. And we were talking before the show, and it turns out there are still spots left. So let's go ahead and kick this entire thing off with you talking about your charity tournament. Tell people what it's all about and tell them how they can sign up.
Yeah, the Rainbow Bowl is back for year 2, and it's kicking. And you know what? Yeah, there's still spots left. I take signups almost until the season starts. I try to fill as many leagues as I can keep up with. I have to kind of do the scoring on my own, like kind of keep track of everything on my own, but it raises money for the Trevor Project. I'm going toward LGBTQ plus youth resources to help queer kids become queer adults, right? Like that's the whole goal of everything I do. Important. And the platform that I use is to give back to my own community and be someone who can have some sort of positive impact on this community as a whole.
And I got to know you pretty early on in your Twitter journey, and I feel like that has been, nobody can ever accuse you of being inauthentic. That has been who you have been from the very rip. You've spoken out about your issues. You've been your authentic self, and I absolutely love that for you. I've loved that our paths have crossed, and I do everything I can to support you. This is my second year in Rainbow Bowl. I'm looking forward to it. I know the league has been talking. We're getting pretty hyped up for the draft date coming up too. So,
yeah, no, I absolutely appreciate like guys like you coming in, like you've been there pretty early on from like the jump of my little fantasy football career. So yeah, and I mean this year it's so fun to watch the leagues like going crazy. I mean my sleeper notifications I can't keep track of anymore.
Yeah, I bet.
You know what I mean? Like I'm in all of them, and so like I just get all the notifications. But people are excited. We're at 150 something players right now, so we're doing it like there's a lot, and I'd love to get us up near that 200 number by the season start.
Well, there you go, folks. If you're playing in an 8-team league and you tuned in for this mock draft specifically for yourself, find Steve on Twitter, get signed up for that. Steve, it's at Steve_Lawson93, correct?
Yeah, that's me.
All right. And I actually linked it in the description of this video, folks, to his Twitter. I didn't have the Rainbow Bowl because I didn't know until 5 minutes ago that it was still taking signups. But if you go to Steve's Twitter, you're going to find the rest of it and you'll be all set to go. Jamie dropped that he is also in the Rainbow Bowl, and you were on his show a few weeks ago. All right, guys, it's time to talk 8-team mock drafts. And I want to start off, Derek, who plays in 8 teams. One of our listeners, Andrea's home league, is an 8-team league. Shout out to Andrea. This show is very much created strictly for you. So we are glad to have you. So Steve, what I'm going to do first is go ahead and get the draft up on the screen. And it looks like we actually filled. I claimed a spot. I don't normally draft when I host because it ends up being a clusterfuck, putting it bluntly. But Steve, I think me and you will be able to keep me regulated and we'll have a good time here. So I'm actually going to start the draft, Steve. I have the second pick, and I like to start by letting you folks know, normally we do not break down every team. It's just not how I run this show, and it's not the most interesting way to run this show. But with tonight only being 8 teams, we may break down more teams than just me and Steve's team when this whole thing is said and done. But I do like to give some credit to the folks who are mock drafting with us right from the very start. Steven George is picking from the 1 spot. I'm at the 2. Andrea, who I'm guessing is Andrea in the chat right now, is picking from the 3 and on the clock. Jamie is picking from the 4 and on the clock. Evan jumped in. He's picking from the 5. P. Burns is at the 6. Quentin is at the 7. And Steve, you got the 8. I don't have a lot of names I have to announce tonight because there are only 8 of us. So, Steve, I wanted to start. Do you play in any small leagues? I know your journey in fantasy football is relatively new, and everybody has been doing 10 and 12 team leagues, but do you play in any small leagues at all in fantasy?
Not this small, no. The smallest I have is 10, and it's not that I wouldn't play in an 8-team league. It's just I haven't had the opportunity to do so. So this is always interesting to me because, like, you're so deep, right? Like, your team is always, like, stacked. It definitely presents its own unique set of challenges and makes those later rounds so much more important than I think 10 and 12 team leagues do. Because you're like, you could still get a star really in like the 9th and 10th round in 10 teamers.
I love that you said that because that's exactly where I was going to go with this. Is the knock on 8-team leagues is everybody has a stacked team. But that leads to 2 problems. Number 1, you are playing another stacked team every single week. Mm-hmm. And number 2, Steve, you went right where I was going to go with this. Your roster is so deep that your lineup decisions become a tremendous headache because in a 12-team league or in a 14-team league, your third bench spot is, Miles Sanders, the 3rd string running back from the Dallas Cowboys. In this, it could be Chuba Hubbard, the starting running back of the Carolina Panthers, and you're choosing to leave him on your bench that week.
Yeah, this format, when it starts to get this small of a league, you no longer have to be like, oh my God, I have to get this position early. You really are playing almost whoever you think is the best player available.
Yeah.
And taking that. Like, so you saw on my turn, I went like Malik Neighbors and then Puka Nacua.
Yeah.
Instead of getting like that running back early, right? So now, like, I know I'm not going to get a running back for a while, but there's so many more picks to have. So I'm like not really stressing it. I'm kind of chilling. And look at this. In an 8-team league, Christian McCaffrey just went the highest I've ever seen him go this season. Like, that's unbelievable.
No, I think that's such a great point, Steve, that there would be times you would be stressing about making sure you lock down a position or making sure you're not the one who gets frozen out of running back or wide receiver. But with this, you know that in the 8th round, there's going to be starting running backs available. It just really comes down to whether or not you're able to pick the right guys to start that week.
Yeah. And it's just like, it becomes, a lot of people do think it's easier because you're picking stars, but when everything is really good, you need to be good at picking elite, right? Like, that's what it amplifies your ability to find the elite talent among the very good talent.
Yeah.
And like, you see it just already across our board, right? Like, the guy who picked first overall, Steven George, is banking on Brian Thomas Jr. improving, right? Like
Yeah.
if he does, he probably walks to a chip or is a very good team at least. But if he bombs because you had to take that risk now, then that's the cost benefit analysis, I guess, of
Yeah.
8 teams.
I want to throw Derek back up on the screen. We're winning him over a little bit. He said the size does make the show. The league is hilarious because of the squirming where they have to make the decision of who to play. There's a lot of reasons the league is hilarious. I love watching old episodes of the league now just to hear players' names that you never thought you were ever going to hear again.
Yeah.
We were talking about Brandon Marshall on a show this week because of that insane 22 catch game he had. And we forget how good Brandon Marshall was for PPR scoring formats for a long while there. So
yeah, there's so many players that you forget exist or had a great, Steven Ridley gets brought up a lot in the league in one season because he's he went for 1,000 yards just so randomly that one year.
Yeah.
And it is a funny show to watch. And it is a show that I sometimes I'm like, this was on cable.
I was gonna say
crazy.
It definitely didn't age well. Parts of it aged fantastically. Parts of it didn't age well, but that's neither here nor there. Apparently Jamie has a 6-team league that he calls the ridiculous 6 in every year, and it's Scott Fishbowl scoring. I'm loving that we're learning all this about folks. I was gonna say, crazy. And Jamie, I don't know if this is the experience for you because Scott Fishbowl scoring is more universal. But it would be my experience, Steve, that the reason a lot of 8-team leagues probably exist is when you're forming your first home league, it can be really hard to find 9 or 11 other people who are interested in this fun little game of ours. And so I feel like that's the spawn of a lot of 8-team leagues. In fact, I think the first iteration of my home league was an 8-team league. And then when people saw what fantasy football was and got more interested, now it's a 14-team league. We almost doubled in size because everybody wanted to play from that point. Steve, do you have a current home league? A lot of folks don't have a home league. A lot of folks have never done a live draft. Has that been your experience with fantasy football?
I do have it's a home league, but it was from when I was in college, which is really when I started to learn fantasy football and play fantasy football. When I was at Florida State, me and my friends down there, they had a league. I had transferred in my sophomore year and learned fantasy football there. And we've had it running. I've been out of college for a little. I'm 31 now. So I graduated when I was, 20. So 11, 12 years now in this league. It's been a lot of fun. I really have. It's just, and we fly down. Most years we fly down or they fly up and all get together, do our draft. It's amazing. This year, little bit different. A couple of my buddies got married or had kids, and money gets a little tighter when that kind of stuff happens. But we were excited, and we saw each other at weddings and stuff, and that's always cool too. So it's fun to watch the home league kind of growing and changing in that way.
I completely agree. Like I said, my home league is 14 teams, but of the original 14, only 4 of us are even still left in the league. So I agree wholeheartedly, though, watching it kind of grow and change, it definitely it's fun. It's like watching your kid grow up a little bit. I know that sounds really dumb.
Yeah,
I do have a kid, so I'm allowed to make that very stupid comparison.
I guess I don't. So I'll take your word for it, though. No kids on my horizon right now, thankfully.
You're not missing much. No, I'm joking. I love my son.
How old is he now? How old is
he? 15 and literally 1 month today away from getting his driver's license. So
are you terrified?
I'm a little terrified, and I am definitely old. There is just no denying it at this point. But yeah, very, very interesting situation that I'll be facing in a month. Those days can move as slowly as possible. Steve, I want to wrap this thing up. Just talking a little bit more about 8 teams before we do a recap of the first round. And I guess the last point I wanted to go with here, you brought up how everybody makes it. I want to talk about your experience so far in these first 5 rounds. Everybody makes it how it's so easy picking studs, but I've noticed you are taking your time making your pick, and I wonder, does it almost get harder when there are so many good players available?
Yes.
Maybe not easier.
Yeah, that's the thing is people think it's easy, but now it's Oh my God. Because in your head, you're like, everyone else's team is going to be so good. Mine has to be so good.
Yeah.
Like, it really is so difficult. Like, this is not, you can't even hang your hat on like, oh, I know more than everybody else. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, like, they're like, oh, I've done the research, I've done this, I've done that.
Wonderful point.
It's like, listen, it's top heavy. It's just a top heavy draft. So like, it just stretches what used to be the first 2 rounds that were like your automatic rounds. Maybe your first 3 were kind of automatic. Now it's like your first 6 are automatic. Like, it's just harder. So now it's like, all right. And I stalled on like Breece Hall because I was like, where do I go? Because those running backs that went after him were all on my radar. And I was like, who's going to do the best in this PPR setting?
Yeah.
And then it was like, I'm just banking on Breece Hall having a monster year.
I love that. And Andrea cosigns. It's hard to pick. It really is. And I'm trying to do it while hosting. And I'm like, okay, so I have to pick this guy and make sure I'm keeping the conversation going. While Steve makes his picks, I do want to go ahead and knock out our first round recap and our early round recap, I like to call it. Normally, I would cover the first 3 rounds. I'm going to cover the entire first 5. That is 40 picks. That's basically the first 3 rounds of a 12-team league. So these are the guys that you can expect to go early in a draft. And Steve, after I run through these guys, I'm going to ask if you're surprised by any of these players. So
Sure.
We started the draft off with Jamar Chase. I go Bijan Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Malik Neighbors wraps up round 1 with a pick from Steve. Steve gets the first pick of round 2, grabs Puka Nacua, and then going back from right to left, it's Nico Collins, Ashton Genty, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Bowers, Derrick Henry, Trey McBride, Brian Thomas. The person who takes Brian Thomas already has 2 wide receivers, goes with their first running back, Devon Achane, Jonathan Taylor, Drake London, A.J. Brown, Ladd McConkey, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson wraps up round 3. As Steve mentioned, he goes another Jet, Breece Hall in round 4, Kyron Williams, Bucky Irving, T. Higgins, Josh Jacobs, Terry McLaurin, Marvin Harrison, and then Chase Brown, wrapping up round 4, bringing us into round 5, where we got George Kittle, DJ Moore, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, James Cook, and Steve wrapping up round 5 with Kenneth Walker. Steve, there were a couple of names that jump out to me here. I want to know if they happen to be the same names for you. Is there anything you're looking at these first 40 picks, rounds 1 through 5, that kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, there's 4 picks that really stand out to me in the first 5 rounds, and it's Ladd and JSN. Back to back.
Was mine as well.
I have said this on other podcasts, and I think we're in for a rude awakening with Ladd McConkey. His efficiency was so ridiculously high. And I brought up the point, I was arguing with some of my co-hosts on another podcast last week about Ladd McConkey, because I'm like, who's the last Harbaugh wide receiver to have 150 targets, which is what he'd essentially need to do to justify being the wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Like he's wide receiver 11 in this, but I've seen him go as high as 8, 7. You got 15 seconds on the clock, brother.
Oh, good luck. Thank you.
I
have a cue, so it would have picked from there, but thank you.
So I worry about Ladd McConkey because I just don't think the volume's going to be there. And I don't know if he's quite as good as people want him to be. I know he had like a good year, but I want to slow down on that. And JSN, the whole situation has changed from last year. Doesn't even have the same guy throwing him the ball. Doesn't have the same guy calling plays. That's a problem. And then quarterbacks, I think, just went too early.
Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, great players, great players to have. I just think they went a bit too early in a smaller league.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything you just said. I'm building my queue up here so that we don't run into these problems later. It's going to happen. Usually I have players in the queue, so we're going to be just fine, folks. But JSN was also the one that jumped out to me, Steve. And again, P. Burns, if you're watching right now, or anybody who is watching who loves JSN, we do this all out of learning. It's all about, just getting better as fantasy, getting better in mock drafting. When we look at JSN, Steve, you hit the nails on the head that I wanted to hit. Not the same offense, not the same quarterback. And then the other issue is Josh has been really good about studying this. I can't think of the offensive coordinator in Seattle right now, but I know he came over from like New Orleans. They do not run a ton of 11 personnel where there will even be a slot role for JSN to play. So now you're taking him out of the role that he's most comfortable in. You're going to force him to play outside. You're going to force him to play outside with Sam Darnold, who do we really believe what we saw last year with Sam Darnold? There are so many questions that come up when you're just talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba that, especially in a draft like this in the third round, when you just kind of look at the guys who went after him, obviously there are questions about Tyreek Hill, but Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, there's the contract issue. I guess everybody has their questions. I'm not so mad at Ladd McConkey. I'm happy at least that A.J. Brown went ahead of him. So I'm not so mad at Ladd McConkey, but JSN I definitely agree with. We're going to shift over to the tight ends here in a second, but there was, I thought, one more player when I was doing this that came up for me. Oh, I want to ask you about this especially because of how much further he went ahead, and you had the opportunity to pick this person and did not pick them. I know you have a pick coming up in about 2 picks, but what is your take on Nico Collins? Because I feel like he is a pretty divisive character in fantasy football right now. He goes at the 2-2 in this draft. And the player I've had trouble taking away from Nico Collins is A.J. Brown. Obviously, Nico gets it done with volume. A.J. Brown gets it done with touchdowns. But I don't know that they should be going a full round and a pick away from each other. Now, obviously, this is an 8-team league, so they were only like 8 picks away from each other. But that's still a pretty big gap for 2 players that I view as way closer in value than they're showing up in this draft.
Yeah, I think the difference for me is that Nico Collins, the yards can... Oh, I just got sniped. That was rough.
Oh.
Nico Collins could put yards up at such an extreme... If he stays healthy, his ability to put up massive amounts of yards is pretty impressive. A.J. Brown typically doesn't do that with the Eagles, and it's not his fault. It's literally just an offensive scheme situation.
Yeah, we actually talked about that on the last show you were on. I'll give you a couple seconds to make your picks here. We talked about that on the last show you were on, that Philly's low passing volume, it can perceptively hurt some of these players. Now, obviously, the touchdown upside has been there over the last few seasons, but anybody who's done projections, and me and you have talked about this, touchdowns are notoriously hard to predict, and it just makes it predict. It just makes it a little bit more of a gamble to bet on that offense where Nico's volume feels safer.
Yeah, and the thing is, when Nico scores a touchdown, it's usually a massive week, right? Like, that's the thing, is touchdowns for Nico are like icing on the cake, where it's so much of what AJ does that it's hard to, you're right, it's hard to count on. It makes starting AJ just a little bit more nerve-wracking. Now, I do think, like, if you just put them in a vacuum, you're like, who's the better wide receiver? Like, 1 or 2, you take AJ Brown. I think the talent is significantly better. But the situation is just so much better for Nico Collins in terms of, like, CJ Stroud doesn't care if there's defenders near him at all.
True.
He will just chuck it to him. Like, and Jalen Hurts won't, and Jalen Hurts really can't. He's not the same thrower of the football. Jalen Hurts takes a lot of fantasy points for himself. CJ Stroud really doesn't.
It's a really good point that Hurts, rather than make a bad decision, will run. And he also has Devonta Smith he can throw to, where that second option doesn't really exist in Houston.
Right, and there's no running back like Saquon Barkley in Houston. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of things that work out in Nico Collins' favor that have nothing to do with talent. But it is the ability to rack up yardage for me that makes Nico Collins so unbelievably appealing.
I'll be honest, that is the first good argument I've heard not really anti-AJ, putting Nico ahead of AJ Brown since I've started asking that question. So I appreciate that.
Oh.
Our chat perfectly led into the next question I want to ask. So Jamie gives credit for great value on George Kittle. Mm-hmm. And then, I thought it was 2 different people. Jamie asked, because you brought up the quarterbacks, Jamie asked if it wouldn't be smarter to get some of the elite guys in these smaller leagues. So I was going to talk about the elite tight ends, but maybe we can lump the quarterbacks into this. But when we look at the 3 tight ends, Steve, this week I kind of had an epiphany that I need to maybe start giving George Kittle a little bit more credit as one of the elite tight ends. And the reason I say that is all year long, it has been Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. Yep. But when you look at the wide receiver room in San Francisco, it is beyond a mess. And if he can stay healthy, Kittle is probably going to be an excellent PPR value. So my question is twofold. Let's start with just the elite tight ends. What is your take? Is it the big 3? Do you hate either of the top 2 guys and you'd put Kittle or one of these surprise tight ends ahead of them?
I wouldn't put anyone ahead of those 2. I think it's Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and then kind of the field from there. Okay. The reason why I think George Kittle gets so disrespected is you kind of said it, is if he stays healthy,
Yeah.
then but it's like, all right, there's been some years where every time it seems like George Kittle's value rises to his talent level, he gets hurt and then misses the whole year, and you wind up losing. And I think it's burned fantasy managers 2 or 3 times. And so you can't really pick him. As far as the question of oh, don't you want these one-off positions that you only need one, you got to stay away from them, because most of the time no one's going to draft more than one of them before you're getting your starter. And the gap between the wide receiver one and the quarterback 1 and the quarterback 5 is not big enough for me to be I'm going to miss out on the RB6 who has a pretty massive gap on the RB11.
You're about to be on the clock. So it's so funny. I'm of two minds when it comes to this question. And honestly, it doesn't even matter on league size, but I do want to focus on it on an 8-team league. I agree with you so wholeheartedly at quarterback, and I disagree clearly by my draft strategy at tight end, because what I see while you're making your picks here is I think the gap between the tight end 1, and you could argue the tight end 1 through 3, grouping those together, and the tight end 8 is significant enough to make a guy like Trey McBride or Brock Bowers worth an early pick. Now, that kind of gets slapped in my own face by George Kittle going 3 full rounds after Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, because I could have waited 2 rounds, got George Kittle, and did exactly what you said, had more talent at running back and wide receiver from the 2nd and 3rd round. And that's something we'll talk about a little bit at the end of the draft when I break down my draft. I wholeheartedly agree with you at quarterback. And I think this is probably the most important lesson that we can bring up on this show. And it's funny, I did a mock draft with Joe Zolo on Wednesday night where we just let auto picks do all of the other picks, and me and Joe picked our own team. And I said it was no surprise that Joe and I were going to be the last people drafting a quarterback. But Steve, when you look at this draft board, it is no surprise that you and I are going to be the last 2 people picking a quarterback. And I think it's okay in this situation to do some name dropping. 1, because it's a mock draft, and 2, because there's just so many left. So I am not going to deny, Steve, that Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they are the best possible quarterbacks. And you got them in the 5th round this time. But then when you start looking Jalen Hurts feels like a value in the 8th, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow in the 9th. But then when you look at who's still available to me and you, Steve, who have not had to waste a pick at all yet, Baker Mayfield, who was the QB5 last year, Bo Nix, who was the QB6 last year, Jared Goff, who was the QB8, I believe, last year. And then if you want to bet on upside, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, everybody else in the league could draft 2 quarterbacks, Steve, and I would still be okay with whoever I got as my 1 quarterback.
Right. And that's the thing is, once someone picks 1 quarterback in a 1 quarterback league, unless they really want to stick it to you and kind of give you the middle finger, they're not going to draft another one. Because why would they? They have other positions to fill. It's so easy to fill that quarterback position. And a guy like Justin Fields could be a pick that when he plays, he's a top 5 quarterback in PPR, and he has been his whole career. So I'm happy to wait for him. I'm happy to.
Yep, that's exactly where I stand. And Fields has been a conundrum. Actually, let's talk a little bit about Fields while I make my pick here. Any concern with this injury? I guess it was a dislocated non-big toe.
Oh no. I'm a medical I'll speak from the medical professional side of my life. That
I forgot that is not you do that. What a great question for me to ask.
Yeah, I'm an emergency nurse. So this is I was an athlete growing up. I played baseball during my freshman year of college. I've dislocated toes. It's not a big deal. As long as it's not your big toe, you're pretty fine. They pop it right back into place. It hurts for a couple days, but that's it. And you're ready to roll. As long as there's no structural damage, which most dislocations don't cause, you're okay.
I think that's such a great point that I'm so glad I asked you that question and had no intentions of, I forgot what you did for a living, because I wondered why they made such a big deal that it wasn't the big toe, but it matters that it wasn't the big toe. Okay.
Yeah. Your big toe is all your your balance is your big toe. That's where all your balance comes in. That's where all your throw power comes in. Your power to push off and run. All of it stems from your big toe. It does 50 to 75% of the work. So if that's messed up, then you're really kind of messed up. But other toes, like you could honestly almost chop them all off and you'd be probably pretty fine.
Steve, I'm going to take a look at round 6 through 10 here to let us do a little bit of a recap. I'm not going to read every player because that's not entertainment for folks to tune into the show and just hear me read list of players. So what I'm going to do is break down some of the positions that went. And then, Steve, I'll do the same thing. I'll ask you if any of these picks stand out to you. Obviously, we've spent a lot of time on the quarterbacks and tight ends. When you look at starting in round 6, 2 quarterbacks had went before round 6, 4 go after round 6. Me and Steve are still playing chicken with the quarterbacks. When you look at the tight ends, 3 had went before round 6, 4 go after round 6. So people are kind of like 50-50 on, do I want the elite guy? Do I want the guy that we want to wait on? And then what I love to see is I've noticed this a lot lately, Steve, and I always like to give credit to Sleeper for their wonderful color coding. I always notice when you look at the top half of the draft and the bottom half of the draft, there's this like perfect symbioticness where at the early part of the draft, all the teams that took wide receivers are kind of over on the right. Teams that took running backs are on the left. And then it kind of flips later on and then it flips back later on to where you just see the zigzag of everybody just taking the value that falls to them. I know you're about to make a pick, and I hate putting you in the spot when you're about to make a pick. But when you look at rounds 6 through 10, the middle rounds of this draft, is anything jumping out at you?
You know what? There hasn't been, and it happens a lot in drafts, and I'm shocked that it didn't happen this time, is no one kicked off a run of those one-offs at all. Like usually once like Hawkinson went, that's usually where people go, oh my God, the tight ends are about to go. I need to get one.
Yeah.
And then everyone starts drafting tight ends way too early. People have kind of dug their heels in and said, nope, this is my strategy. This is what I'm doing. And I am perfectly okay doing it. And I'm like, you know what? Good for you, because that's pretty dope.
I'm going to let you go ahead and make your pick, and I'm going to bring up something that we talked about on our Minnesota show this past week. And I know we spent some time on the tight ends already, but the first player that jumped out to me is TJ Hawkinson. And I have an issue, Steve, with how early TJ Hawkinson is going. In this draft, he goes off as the tight end 4. In a lot of drafts, he's going off as the tight end 5. And you'll have different guys, namely Sam Laporta, who just went off in round 11, going ahead of him. Mm-hmm. A lot of people seem to remember what Hawkinson did in 2023, before the injury in 2023 and in 2022. Last year, he was not good coming back and managed to score 0 touchdowns on a team that threw 35 touchdowns. I'm not saying TJ Hawkinson can't be good again. What I am saying is, no matter how you break down the draft capital, him going off the board as the TE4 or tight end 5, that just feels way too high on me. Are you more in on Hawkinson bouncing back from this injury?
No, I'm not. I don't know. He's fine. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's fine. But honestly, every tight end that's gone after him pretty much until this point, I would have taken over him.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not Laporta. I'm kind of out on Laporta.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to bring up how interesting it was for Laporta to go that late. Like, that is so incredibly late for Sam Laporta, but you're not mad at that, huh?
No, I'm not. Because you know what? Like, he had a great rookie year, but then last year he looked bad. And every time he did something good, it was always off of like some weird trick play. Like, he was always like the beneficiary of some insane Ben Johnson nonsense that, like, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if he can get open consistently at this level. Like, that was a hard drop off from what he did the year previously. So, but like, yeah, I mean, Andrews, I'd take over Hawkinson. Ingram, absolutely. Kelsey, probably not. He's a little old now. But
yeah, Kelsey's that guy who, at his age, it's just like, it's a lot like Hawkinson. Is he worth the risk? So,
yeah, you know, I saw a stat. Someone put it out there on Twitter, and I forget who it is. I wish I had like saved it. It was weeks ago. Travis Kelce forced 1 missed tackle last season.
Oh my God.
1. like he's slow now. He is like, and you know what? Like, that's not a knock on Travis Kelce. Like, what he did in his career in the NFL has been Hall of Fame worthy. Like, if he doesn't get into the Hall of Fame, I think it's a travesty. So like, he was great, and Father Time kind of comes for us all. And, you know, when you're a professional athlete, the wheels come off eventually. And when you're a tight end, it tends to happen really fast.
Yeah. 100% true. Folks, I do eventually scroll the draft board. I have one or two more things I want to talk about from this part of the draft, and then we'll start to scroll and get to the end of the draft. Steve, I want to ask you about the rookie running backs. I don't know if we actually talked a lot about the rookie running backs the last time you were on, but in this 6 through 10 draft, we see Amarian Hampton go. We see RJ Harvey go. We see Caleb Johnson go. And Quinshon Judkins with the drama that's going on with him in Cleveland. He goes in round 10. Overall, obviously 6 through 10, you can in a 12 team league, you can bump these up by almost 2 rounds. In a 10 team league, you can bump it up by 1 round. But this kind of middle of the draft, let's call it the RB 15-ish, RB 15 to RB 25. Is that where you want these rookies to go? Or would you like to see, because obviously Genty goes far earlier than that, but everybody else seems content on waiting. Hampton seems to be kind of like the dividing line. A lot of people are high and will take him early. Otherwise, like in this draft, he falls back to the middle.
Yeah, I'm okay waiting. I don't love the talent in this running back class. Like, I just don't see anyone besides Genty that's like, wow. Henderson has something to him, I think. I think he could be good. Hampton seems fine. He could be good. Like, everyone could be good. I just don't see elite. I don't see anyone who's going to take the job outright. I don't see any like workhorse running backs in this group, and that's a problem for me. And then Judkins is like an absolute, like, if his allegations are true, then he should never see the field for a snap. But like, this is a great running back class because Ashton Genty is so unbelievable that I think it made it a very good running back class, but they're all serviceable. They're probably actually going a little too early, to be honest with you.
That's kind of been my take, and I find it so interesting because when the dynasty cycle started, all we could talk about is how much everybody loved these running backs. And then after they all land, it's just kind of like, I agree with you, Genty, obviously. Hampton, I've had trouble getting on board with, at least for this year, because of Najee Harris and just the nature. It seems like they're going to split. Travion Henderson, I'm on board with you, but then like RJ Harvey, I think people are writing off J.K. Dobbins a little bit too quickly. I don't know. It's such an interesting class. Steve, before we move on to the end of the draft, every week I like to play a game of keep, trade, cut. And I wasn't sure where these guys were going to end up falling in the draft. I'm trying to see now. It's funny. Most of them ended up on my team, or at least 2 of them did. So they're relatively close to each other. But what I can tell you is around the 4th round of a 12-team draft, all of these guys are usually available. And if you're a team that likes to go running back early, you could be making a choice as having one of these guys as your wide receiver 1. And so what I want to ask you is about 3 guys who are mid-round picks, the wide receiver 1 of their own team. And would you be comfortable with these guys being your wide receiver 1? I want you to keep, trade, cut DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, and Cortland Sutton. How would you break those guys down?
I am going to keep DJ Moore, trade DK Metcalf, and cut Cortland Sutton.
Now, I'm going to let you break it down if you want to, but I'm embarrassed. That's my exact answer, Steve.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'll get I mean, I'm always willing to defend my position I said.
So let's start with why do you like DJ Moore the most out of it? Or do you think DK Metcalf is the best and he just has the most trade value?
I think DJ Moore is the best player of the 3. And I think his situation is also the best with the best play caller.
Okay.
I would trade DK because I think his value's been steamed up by like Pickens being traded, Aaron Rodgers signing. People are like, oh my God, it's going to be so great. But Aaron Rodgers is 150 years old. Didn't look very good last year. DK Metcalf isn't a good route runner either. Like, he is what he is. Like, he was in a pass happy offense and he like struggles to like 1,000 yards. He's always kind of hovering around 1,000 yards. Not as good in the touchdown department as he should be, but his value's definitely been steamed up. Cortland Sutton quietly had a pretty good year last year, but they brought in other pass catchers. I don't see the touchdowns just staying at it seemed like every other touch of his went for a touchdown. I'm probably looking at some regression there. I think Sutton to me is the guy who could like bust out the most. Like, he could just kind of have those games where you're like, wow, you did absolutely nothing for me. So I would cut him and not feel great about it. But DK's trade value is high as it'll ever be right now.
I love that breakdown. I'm going to scroll the draft board so folks can see the end of the draft. We have this set up as 16 rounds. I did 5 bench spots. I didn't really mention the starting settings at the beginning of the show. I did 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 2 flex spots, because I feel like in an 8-team league, you should be starting as many players as possible. And we're going to talk a little bit about the end of the draft and a little bit about end of the draft strategies, about kickers and defenses and things along those lines. And Steve, after I finish up my take here, I'll give you a chance just to break down again if there are any picks towards the end of the draft. I guess it would be the other way, like guys you're shocked didn't go a little bit earlier. So we'll talk about that from rounds 11 through 16 as we wrap the draft up. But Steve, I am in wholehearted agree with you. It's DJ Moore for me, it's DK Metcalf, and it's cut Cortland Sutton. When we were on the spot last night, I was talking to Joe Zolo on our mock draft, and Joe went 3 running backs as he always does. He's very stubborn when it comes to that. And I asked him if he was comfortable with Cortland Sutton being his wide receiver 1, and he very quickly said yes. And the more I thought about it, I'm just not. Now, Joe took DJ Moore. He was able to get Sutton, I think, on his next pick, or he just got sniped on it. So I am very comfortable with Cortland Sutton being my wide receiver 2. As my wide receiver 1, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've played that game before, Steve. I am not comfortable with Sutton as my 1. And so that kind of makes him the cut here, because I would gamble on DK Metcalf, but you hit such a good point. There's so many red flags, I guess, when it comes to DK Metcalf. And then the reddest of all flags is his current quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. Can we depend on Aaron Rodgers? Can we depend on him for the full season? What if he gets hurt again? And then we're dealing with a backup quarterback.
That's the other thing. Yeah. Like if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, which he's in his 40s and is not a crazy idea that may happen.
Yeah.
We're stuck with Mason Rudolph.
Oof.
Right. That's an oof. That's an oof. That's not great.
And Jamie just brought up he took Sutton as his 3 in this one. Not apples to apples because it's an 8-team league, but I totally get what you're saying there, Jamie. DJ Moore I love because I guess it comes back to, Steve, I think we're going to see better play out of Caleb Williams this season. And I think that's just going to inherently be better for DJ Moore. I don't think Caleb Williams is as bad as what we saw last season. He honestly wasn't that bad. It's just we had very high expectations, and when you have that high of expectations, it can lead to a letdown sometimes. So I think DJ Moore, especially in a PPR format, is just great. DK Metcalf is certainly the worst of this entire group in a PPR format. So I love your answer. It's not often that the guest answers exactly how I did, and then your reasoning was my exact reasoning for doing this as well. So I love that. And Steve, as we move on to the end of the draft here, again, I just want to give you some opportunity to look at rounds 11 through 16 and see if any picks stand out to you. The first player I want to ask you about while you're kind of looking at players was actually taken by Evan at pick 11. I didn't mean to drop bars like that. But Travis Etienne, Steve, I am not as hateful of Travis Etienne as a lot of the fantasy community is. I think everyone wants to write him off, but it seems like we've wanted to write him off from the day Tank Bigsby got there. I still think certainly in PPR formats, his role is very safe, even with the addition of Bashal Tutin. I think this is a bad decision to ignore Travis Etienne, especially if you're able to now land him as an RB3 when a few years ago he was trending towards being a first round pick.
Yeah, I'll be honest. He was my pick if he fell to me at the 11-8. I would have been thrilled to have him there. Yeah, I think we've written off Travis Etienne because everyone was just mad that the Jaguars drafted him in the first round. Everyone wants to kind of crucify him for Urban Meyer's sins kind of deal. Like, I don't know. Like, did he look great last year? No, but like it's not his fault that Urban Meyer burned the Jaguars to the ground and drafted him stupidly high when he shouldn't have been. It just, I don't know. He's a good player. I think he's gonna have a bounce back year. They got Cohen there now, who seems to have a pretty good idea of how to use running backs. I'd be happy to have Etienne on my team.
Wow. Steve, we're agreeing way too much tonight. This isn't a normal show for me and you. Usually we find some things to disagree on, but when you take a look at picks 11 through 16 here, Steve, are there any other guys down here who I'll start with the positive that you're shocked fell as far as they did? Or if there's nobody who is that, is there anybody who got drafted down here that you don't even think deserves a roster spot in this shallow of a league?
Yeah, you got him. Travis Hunter fell so far.
Yeah, I was a little surprised.
And I've been out on Travis because I'm like, I don't want any part of it. But usually someone's willing to be like, yeah, I'll take the shot on him. this was a very we were all like, nope, don't want that headache kind of group
this is
here, because
we have found the 8 people in fantasy football who do not care about Travis
at
Hunter.
all. We all got together. We're like, absolutely not. Get him out of here. Yeah, he fell pretty far, even further than I'm like, wow, all right. Justin Fields, I guess, kind of surprised me falling as far as he did. I'm a homer, so getting Trey Benson in the 14th, I'm always thrilled. Michael Pittman fell far. Yeah. Michael Pittman fell to the 14th. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you're getting a team's wide receiver 1 in the 14th with guys like Ricky Pearsall, who's currently on the PUP, Travis Hunter, who we've talked about, Darnell Mooney, who just limped off the field a few days ago, and Michael Pittman, as of now, he's still the wide receiver 1 in Indianapolis.
I think we need to put some respect on his name. He played last year, half of last year, with a broken back.
Yeah, Pittman was one of those ones where there was him and one other player where they made it out like his season was about to be over. And then all of a sudden he's like, nope, I'm playing this next week.
Yeah, that was so weird. Yeah, because they're like, oh, he broke his back. That's kind of it for his season. And he was like, what? No, I'm fine. And I was like, well, which one is it? Because you can't have a season-ending injury 3 minutes ago, and then you're like,
I could remember, Steve, there was one other guy where that same story happened, where they made it out like it was season-ending, and I'm drawing a blank now. I'll remember as soon as we get off the air.
Are so weird sometimes, because you'll see a guy, and it's like, he rolled his ankle, he's fine. And you get the coach speaking, he's fine, he's just sore. And all of a sudden it comes out, it's like he needs ankle surgery, he's out 6 to 8 weeks, or 8 to 12 weeks, the season's over. And you're like, what happened? I thought he just rolled his ankle. How did we get here? How did it get here so fast? How did it go so bad? It's just the nature of the body. You know what I mean? It just, you never know with these guys, the severity of the injury, because they're all obviously pretty tough people to be able to play in the NFL. So you'll see guys kind of shake off an injury that you're like, oh, he looks fine, and then he's not. Or it's hey, season ender, but it's nah, I'm going to play through it. I'll be fine.
Yep. All right, Steve, I'm going to give you a second to recap your team here in just a second. I also want to let you know, just so I'm not catching you by complete surprise, that after you recap, I'm also going to have you look over the other teams and pick one team other than your own that you like and maybe want to talk about, just because I feel like in such a small league and we have time right now. So again, I'm going to let you go ahead and break down your team. I do want to kind of point out to folks, we're going to talk about this. Maybe, I don't know if Steve did not draft a kicker or a defense, which is normally my strategy as well. So Steve, I'll have you talk about that, but even if you don't, I will. So I'm going to scroll back up, Steve, highlight your team. You do not need to talk about every pick you made. You've talked about a few of these guys, but again, we have time. So you can talk about any of these guys that you felt you didn't give enough time, or just kind of your strategy as you picking from the end there, how these picks fell to you.
Yeah, so this was a PPR league. That's the way the scoring broke down. So I just went for guys who are going to get targets, right? I just went for target monsters. Malik Neighbors, no matter who winds up under center for the New York Giants, this is a guy I want to highlight anyway, because I think he deserves to be steamed up even more. No matter who's under center, they are just going to pepper him with targets, because that's what he's best at. Puka obviously has Matt Stafford, the wide receiver 1 maker. Another guy who I did not expect myself to be his cheerleader, DeAndre Swift, is just being
I was going to yell criminally at that pick.
Criminally ignored.
I agree. DeAndre Swift is my favorite value in fantasy football right now. I've said this for 3 consecutive shows, and he was the number 1 guy on my chart when you took him. I gambled on Henderson over Swift, and now I wish I had it. And I'm pretty sure, you being a Patriots fan, we probably could have just flopped those 2 picks, and both of us would have been happy.
Yeah, well, I'll actually tell you, I don't know if I've ever talked about this on your show before, but I actually am not a Patriots fan, believe it or not. I root for nobody. I root for my fantasy team. It's very strange. I'm a diehard Celtics fan, but I root exclusively for my fantasy football team.
I made assumptions based on your accent and where you're from. My apologies.
Yeah, it's funny. I loved Tom Brady, and then when he left, I was kind of like, okay, I guess I'm done with the Patriots.
Oh my God, Steve, you and I have way more in common than I thought. I don't know if I've ever shared this on a story with you. So I grew up in Northeast Ohio as a Browns fan. The Browns obviously left. During that time, I fell in love with college basketball, and Donovan McNabb played college basketball at Syracuse. And a throwaway comment, they were like, he's also the quarterback of the football team. I was like, what? Like that's a thing. And so not that like football was a thing, that like the guy played 2 sports.
Right.
And so fell in love with his game. And this is the same year the Browns are coming back. I'm like, please just draft Donovan McNabb. And I'm the happiest person in the world. They didn't. He goes to the Eagles. So I was a diehard Eagles fan for 15 years. Literally my son's name is Donovan because he was born the year that they were 1 game away from going to the Super Bowl. They lost to the Cardinals. And I said, if they won the Super Bowl, I'm naming my kid Donovan McNabb Weisse. My wife hated the middle name McNabb. She fell in love with the first name Donovan. So that is my son's name. But just like you, when he left the Eagles, Steve, I lost my taste for fandom. And I root for my fantasy team. I say the exact same thing that you do. I love that, Steve. I'm glad we got to that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just, you know what? Like fantasy football has definitely like caused this to happen so much more rapidly. But like, honestly, I love
Jamie named both of his kids after football players too. So.
Yeah, I don't know how I would name if I had kids. I don't know how I would name them. My boyfriend definitely would not be on board with naming them after football players.
Well, I was just gonna say, and you're way too creative a person to name your kid Tom. I don't think you'd even.
I would never. No, I'd name him after like I'm a big reader. I love reading. So I'd probably name him after something from like a character from a book I love.
Far more creative than just picking your favorite football player.
But then I get to be a homer too. Like who I root for is like I'm a Florida State Seminole at heart. Like that's
you've always talked about that. Yep.
Yeah, and so I'll always root for my guys all over the NFL. So I'm like, why would I lock myself into a team and have to root against players I like when I could just cheer for the players I like and kind of be like, hey, I'm just glad everyone's doing a great job.
Absolutely, I'm with you. So let's get back to your team here, Steve. You grabbed DeAndre Swift in the 7th round, and then you kind of just went balanced and just started filling your roster with different positions.
Yeah, and I started swinging for upside after right after Evan Ingram. I went Keon Coleman because reports out of camp have him doing very well, and then I am a bit of a homer, and he was a Florida State guy.
Yeah,
but he's also the wide receiver 1 for Josh Allen, so I'm like, that has to count for something. Cam Scatterbo, I think stinks. I think he sucks. So Tyrone Tracy falling to me was pretty nice. Like, I'm sorry to like the Scatterbo.
It's hilarious because I felt like I got sniped by him at the 15-1. So clearly, again, this draft, not high on rookies, but I felt like I got sniped, but you say it's not a snipe. It was a good thing for me.
Yeah. So like, I was much happier with Trey Benson and then grabbing Brandon Ayuk. Like, I know I don't have a kicker or a defense. Brandon Ayuk's going to be probably on the IR or whatever it's called.
Wonderful draft strategy. Yes.
So I'm like, I'll just move him over, like sit him and whatever. Like then he's there for a while. And Jaden Higgins rounded it out because I'm like, you know what? Who knows what'll happen? I didn't want the defense or kicker. I know we're going to get into it, so I guess I'll just talk about it now.
Yeah.
Because if it gives me the option not to, people get hurt in preseason all the time, and I'd rather not have to fight for guys I want in free agency. So I'm like, all right, Jaden Higgins, right? Say Nico Collins blows his ACL out 3 days from now. I don't want to have to like go bid against everybody in the
role. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go have to blow all my fab and hope to God I was first in the waiver priority.
Steve, I've been doing this show for 4 years, and I have been writing about fantasy football for 10 years. I don't know how I've never put to thought what you just said. Grab guys so you can throw into your IR, and then that automatically, I have a whole other part of it that I'll talk about when I do my team, because I also don't draft a defense and a kicker usually. I did draft one this round, but that's neither here nor there. I have a whole other reason I do it, but I don't know how the common sense move, the great move of, Brandon Ayuk is likely going to IR, and even if he isn't, he's on the pup right now, so you can slide him into your IR right now and then fill spots as needed. Love that.
Yeah, it just was like, I was like, all right, well, I'll just take it. Yeah. And that opens up spots. So, and then these late round picks, it's all upside. Just get upside. That's what you're shooting for. Those are your dart throws. Go crazy.
Yep. Love that. I'll jump over to my team, and then I'll talk about my thoughts on defense and on kickers when we get to me. Steve kind of hit it on the head at the beginning of the draft. I'm just looking for unbeatable talent. And so Bijan Robinson is my number 1 overall player. I get the folks who have Chase as their number 1 overall player. So it was Chase and Bijan, and I like Genty as well. Or not Genty. Well, I do like Genty, but Gibbs would have been another pick for me there. I didn't have to make that decision, though. I went Bijan Robinson. Trey McBride, I am a tight end early guy. I am a set it and forget it guy. And I do still believe Bowers, McBride, and Kittle offer a positional advantage, even in this small of a league. I did not draft a backup tight end. You will never catch me drafting a backup tight end. I don't care if I draft the last tight end. I made that decision. The waivers are your backup tight end. You can stream the position every week if you need to. Don't force it. I am also an RB early guy, so Jonathan Taylor was a natural pick for me. I do like Achane, especially in PPR. I love Kyron Williams, Breece Hall, Bucky Irving. I was honestly hoping I would have went running back again where I went Marvin Harrison if any of those guys would fall. They didn't, so I just started loading up on wide receiver ones, potentially with upside. Marvin Harrison, I'm hoping we see a better offense in Arizona. I do have two Arizona Cardinals now, so I don't know how much I love that. DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, guys who are wide receiver ones on their own team. And then I went back to running backs. I want a stable of RB1s. Travion Henderson, I think, could easily slide into the James White role in this Josh McDaniel offense. Absolutely. And I think that's great for PPR. Then I go back to wide receivers with upside. Roma Dunze. I know I have DJ Moore. I'm not too worried about it in this deep of a league. If DJ Moore gets hurt, if DJ Moore gets traded, now I have the wide receiver one in Chicago. Deebo Samuel, reports are great. Cooper Kupp, he's old. But Steve, the last thing I wanted to bring up before I get into it, so we talked a little bit about Travis Hunter. I grabbed Najee Harris because I wanted running backs. So I grabbed Bo Nix, and I had a feeling you were going to grab Justin Fields. And I saw in between us, Justin Herbert goes. And folks may have noticed me scrolling the board to make sure I didn't miss something. Steve, we just did an entire draft where Baker Mayfield did not get drafted at all. It was the QB5 last year. There's clearly an expectation of a step back. But in an 8-team league, should Baker Mayfield probably be on someone's roster, or are you good with it?
I'm good with it. I think it's going to be a step back. I think it was like, again, the stats don't, the advanced analytics, and I know that's like such an awful thing that people love to throw around, but every single metric of Baker Mayfield's last year was like a career best, and it was like across the board. And it was way out of whack. It was like crazy skewed. And when that happens, I'm always like, you know what? I'm going to bet on like history versus this one isolated season. And that's why I usually, now I have been late to the party on a number of players in my life. But when history is like, hey, listen, this guy typically is like a QB 12 overall, and fluctuates between that for the last decade, but then last year for some reason went fucking nuclear and just went crazy.
Maybe expect regression.
Yeah, I'm going to expect the regression. And in an 8-team league, I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good on it.
I knew we were going to go Fields. We actually had this whole discussion, and you kind of mentioned it earlier in the draft. I just thought maybe someone would just grab him as a backup and see the value. But hey, we have a bunch of really smart drafters who said, I'm not drafting a backup quarterback. Yeah, I'm not making fun of the person who did draft a backup quarterback. I'm just saying it was unnecessary.
Did anyone draft one? Did someone?
I think Evan did. If I scroll up a bit, he grabbed Daniels and Herbert. Probably unnecessary. He's the only one, though. Kickers and defense. This will be my last thing before we get you guys out of here for the night. So I love what Steve said about finding guys that you can stash on the IR and then go out and get other guys. And I would do that, but I would also not go get my kicker in defense yet. Now, I will explain why I took a defense in this draft in just a second. I draft kickers in defense, or I don't draft kickers in defense as trade bait. And I want people to understand my mindset here. I've been explaining this a lot on the previous shows because I want people to understand. When you look at my team, I'm not looking to trade Najee Harris, Travis Hunter, Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel. Nobody wants those guys. For 10 rounds, everybody told me I don't want those guys. They didn't draft them. What I am looking to do is I am comfortable having those guys on my roster. So what I want to do is take 2 of my middle round guys, and maybe because I have 2 Chicago Bears, I take DJ Moore and Travion Henderson, and I try to form a 2-for-1 deal for a player I do like Bucky Irving, or I was going to say Ashton Genty. Nobody's making that trade. Chase Brown, where I'm offering you a middle round wide receiver and a middle round running back for a high round running back because maybe one of your guys got hurt, or maybe you just hate one of your guys and you've been bitching about your wide receivers on the message boards or in the chat. I'm going to be comfortable with the guys I took later because nobody wants those guys. I have to be comfortable with them. But people probably wanted these middle round guys. So I'm looking to make 2-for-1 and 3-for-1 trades to free up that roster spot. And then that's what lets me sign my kicker in my defense. Love what Steve said, but then take it to another level. Look for those 2-for-1s and 3-for-1s. As long as you are taking 2 guys that you drafted in the middle and trading them for one guy that was drafted ahead of you, a guy that you wanted and didn't get a chance to get. I did take the Denver Broncos, though. And the reason I took the Denver Broncos, they're the only player with my last pick that I will take out of a kicker or a defense, because the Denver Broncos had the number 1 fantasy defense last year. The Denver Broncos have one of the toughest places to play. They have one of the toughest places to play for rookies. And their first week is against Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans. And I'm just
look, that might be a mess.
Week 1, and I can start the best defense in fantasy football, you're going to get absolutely no complaints from me. Oh, and Jamie pouring water on my draft strategy. He said, I'm just not going to trade with you until you get a kicker in defense. Well, guess what, Jamie? There's 7 other managers in the league, and there's going to be one sucker out there for me.
Oh, there absolutely will be.
Steve, this was awesome. I always have fun with you. This show was very cool about a league. Like I said, I've never done a draft like this, and I feel like
I haven't either.
Hopefully, yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like hopefully for folks out there who are dipping their toes in 8 teams, for Andrea, who is in the 8-team league, hopefully we gave you some great tips here. Steve, I would ask one last time, let everybody know where they can find you, but more importantly, let them know how they can get signed up for the Rainbow Bowl.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. It's Steve_Lawson93. You can also find the Rainbow Bowl on Twitter. It's just the Rainbow Bowl. Signing up, links in my bio on Twitter. The sign-up sheet's there. Just fill it out, and it enters you in. I cannot guarantee a spot to everyone who signs up. It's kind of a lottery system. But if you get in, you get to play with people who work for companies like In Between Media or Club
Football
Fantasy
guys.
Or the Football Guys
Yeah.
or ESPN. We brought in Stefania Bell into one of the leagues. This is her second year in the tournament as well.
Amazing.
We get people from all over the place. It's an incredible group of people. You'll grow your community. You'll grow closer to so many people, and you'll help a good cause. So the link's in my bio. Sign up, and I'm always trying to add more divisions. And we're doing horror characters as the theme this year, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I will say, each of my last 2 seasons of the random leagues I've jumped in, there has been no chat more popping than the Rainbow Bowl chat. So I absolutely love it. Steve gets a great group in there. It's a group of people you want to be associated with, and it's a charity you want to do some benefiting for. Guys, we're going to be focusing on a basic home league draft settings for the rest of the summer. So we're talking 10-team, 12-team. I think next week, I'm going to go the complete opposite of this draft. I'm going to go with a 14-team league next week. So with as easy as these teams were to build, and I did quotations there for folks who might just be listening, 14-team is actually my home league, and it gets very, very interesting in the late round picks. You start drafting guys that you may have never even heard of before. And on our Wednesday show, we're actually going to start breaking down our rankings soon as everybody's home league drafts get a little bit closer. So keep an eye out for that. We go live every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. This show is every Friday at 9 o'clock. Thank you all so much for drafting with us. I always tell you guys, if you don't tune into the chat, if you guys don't draft with us, it's a very, very boring show. That was not the case tonight. Thank you to Steve, for Ryan and Club Fantasy. You guys can follow Club Fantasy on all the social medias at Club Fantasy FFL. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football, and practice makes perfect. I will see you at the next mock draft.